topic today that once again is continuing the theme of our self-investigation and the curiosity of where the reconnective healing experience lives. What is the way in which we recognize energy, light, and information experiencing itself as us? And the topic for this Live and Learn today, I must say, I want to make sure it comes through the way that I heard it, because it's going to challenge some word formations that, despite your race, religion, socioeconomic status, age, country, language, it has been presented with an understanding for many of us and most of us that I would say has, to the best way that I can put it, been retrofitted. It's been retrofitted so that the finite, incredible evolution of humankind in some ways could evolve, perhaps. And maybe because the finite person is always a lot of energy to keep going. And so therefore, we often choose that understanding which makes us feel or experience something through the identity of self rather than our true nature, our true infinite nature. And if we weren't having a conversation around the reconnective healing experience, I don't know that this conversation would be as relevant. So let's first touch on the title today, because today is, as you know, we're not going to have the life leaders do a breakout. We're going to have a very, hopefully, interactive Q&A during the last 20 minutes of our Live and Learn today. So the title we chose, thank you, Cecilia, who I have to bump things off of because she'll always say, oh, Jillian, that might be taken the wrong way. So we are going to explore the nature of self-sacrifice.
And this is going to be mostly Jillian's lead in this. So if I'm pretty quiet and I just chime in once in a while, either with humor, a comment, or a distraction, depending on your perspective, you'll know why I'm just occasionally present. But otherwise, I will have this amazing smile. Or this one.
Well, I would say that it's an interesting part for Eric in this moment, because the nature of self-sacrifice from the reconnective healing experience and that which precedes it is going to be really interesting in how Eric plays a role in this today. He is and was asked to be, on some level, a beautiful host for an understanding that we are all a part of, in a way. So just, and I'm going to be transparent here because we love our community. It doesn't matter whether Eric's mind is running all the time, which it is running all the time. And often Eric is operating in an awareness from his mind, his thinking mind. And it's a beautiful thing to witness how energy, light, and information has chosen to experience himself when we're speaking of Eric specifically versus energy, light, and experience, energy, light, and information experience itself as Jonathan or as Terry or as Jillian. Each is the singular experience of that. So with Eric, it's continuous. And part of what I found so fascinating around exploring the nature of self-sacrifice is that I had to look, and I want us all to consider how we know what we'll say the understanding of self-sacrifice. And so for 2 minutes before we delve into this, I want you each to write down one moment, one continuous moment, if it happens to be that, one glimpse of an incident or a way in which you would say you were involved in self-sacrificing. I just want you to write down how or in what way you would connect with the idea. It, for some, it could have been something that you chose to do or not to do. For some, it might have been the giving of maybe even a kidney, an organ in your body. For some, it might, however it speaks through your finite self. What is the nature of self-sacrifice? So we're going to be quiet for I want you to really take a couple minutes and just document this idea.
What is a portal? It's a doorway to transformation.
It's an expansion of our online essentials, our level 1, an 8+ hour e-learning course.
The portal helps us discover our roadblocks that may be stopping us from living our fullest potential.
How does the portal help bring about these benefits? Easy to follow short segments with interactive exercises, information acquired not only through the mind, but through interaction with the frequencies themselves. It includes the 8 hours of the online essentials course.
2 key chapters, one on love and one on healing, from the new series, The Inner Compass. It brings the possibility for instant transformation, healing, and the evolution of each and every one of us.
We are exploring the nature of self-sacrifice. I see Katerina in the chat popped up. We can't reach it, but I saw Katerina put into the chat her son, the caring of her son or the nurturing of her son. Interesting. Beautiful. And you can put it in the chat or not. Don't feel that you have to. We're all as a community so grateful when you are feeling comfortable to share in that way. So let's proceed here for a moment. I'm going to suggest that this is highly relevant, again, because what we know about the Reconnective healing experience, and certainly which has been a focus of our conversation, is that a very large aspect of the Reconnective healing experience is the dissolving of self. It is the dissolving often, and I'm going to even go as far as to say involuntarily, of the finite I am Jillian. I am Jillian's thoughts. I am Jillian's feelings. I am Jillian's experiences. I am Jillian's past. I'm Jillian's present. I'm Jillian's future. All of the ways in which often we understand ourselves in a Reconnective healing experience, something in the engagement of the energy, light, and information, experiencing itself as us, there is this dissolving. There is this softening. We played in a retreat this weekend. You're always exploring this, even whether you're cognizant or not, but I want you to give acknowledgement to how you recognize this. So we can say there is a dissolving of identity, otherness, and I think initially this word, topic, self-sacrifice, wasn't so tied to giving up of what I'll call things, whether it was time, money, a physical body part donated. it wasn't perhaps always tied to the giving up of a thing. Even what we might call our energy, our life force. We may have, in my family, I come from one of 5 kids, and we have very dynamic lives, and kind of collectively together with our children, we're 32 of us. And the nature of my siblings is such that in this lifetime, we've done many things to organize, to share what we'll call a healthy and whole-filled life. But many times it's felt like my life force, the space of I has been pulled and stretched, kind of in the way Katerina might have described, the caring of a child with special needs and so on and so forth. But initially, when we look at quantum physics, when we go to some of the religious icons, be it Christ, or we go to the religious icon of Allah, or we go to these various different ways in which we look at the history of human form, the understanding of self dissolving, self-lending, self-absorption, the giving up of a thing was not part of the nature of it. It was in some ways as simple as the idea you explore every time in a reconnective healing experience. You are sacrificing the self. For what? For the true nature of your infinite being. It isn't a negative. It isn't a less than. In actuality, in a reconnective healing experience, you are becoming more. And that's why we always ask you, who is the I or who is the you? So we need to just, for a moment, just pause. And before we ask you to glance at the circumstances where the feeling, the thought, the tremendous suffering even that may have come from the nature of what you defined as a self-sacrifice, in and within your finite existence, it may make tremendous logical thinking mind sense. So here we sit in the idea and the actual knowing of the dissolving of a finite identity and attachment to things. So there would be nothing too big to give another. A matter of fact, it would be counterintuitive. Your experience as the finite, the registers start to dissolve otherness. Maybe that's back pain, maybe that's active head, maybe that's a tough day, whatever it may be, the dissolving of otherness, the sacrificing of self happens. And there's nothing too big in the exchange at that moment between you and everything. Absolutely infinite possibility. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a moment together, and Eric can lead us a little bit through being the guest. Let's all become the guest. Eric will be the explorer, and for lack of a better understanding, we've been using this terminology a little bit. Eric's going to just dissolve otherness as he innately does, cognizantly and sometimes not cognizantly. And we're going to just be the guest. We're going to receive, and we're going to come back after that, and we're going to look at hopefully the sharing of some of what you each defined as the nature of self-sacrifice. But in this exploration together, take that self-sacrifice into this few minutes together, and as a guest, allow it to be present there, whether it's a thinking thought or just could be a very painful sensation, depending on what that was. And let's have just 5 minutes. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to encourage you each to close your eyes. And we will be, as all reconnective healing experiences, in a receiving, simple observation. Okay? So let's all in silence. Let's begin that now. Close your eyes. Bring the self-sacrifice that you wrote down as close as you possibly can to you. Even if it is almost like a reliving of it, let it be as close to you in space and time as possible. And receive. Observe any sensations if the sensations are very strong, let them be there. The dissolving of otherness is something we have the capacity to be aware that we are aware simultaneously with our finite perceptions. But the balance lies in our ability to recognize the infinite nature of our true being. Receive, observe, notice, is, is, okay, gently open your eyes. We'd love you to glance at the self-sacrifice that you identified at the very beginning of our conversation. We don't want to have a psychological exploration of thoughts and feelings as much as we want to understand, in the same way that we've come to the recognition that fear, the wonderful acronym, false expectations appearing real. Self-sacrifice has a similar nuance to it. We don't have an acronym quite yet. We'll work on one. But we want to consider a certain level of accountability, or recognize that self-sacrifice, the little finite mind, divests itself so that the infinite knowingness of all potential can be recognized. So let's have some hand raising for someone who wants to just share with this beautiful group of friends the weight and the heaviness, the discomfort, the acceptance of the finite self-sacrifice that has been a part or has occupied one of the circumstances of life, in your life, in your journey. And let us see if we can't find the nature of the Reconnective healing experience as it relates to the healing. Healing is found in the divesting of self in a Reconnective healing experience. It's the only way that, what we'll say, instantaneous healing occurs. Instantaneous healing can't occur in finite linear time or space. So let's explore. Anyone? I'm
Yes.
so sorry, Cecilia, we have no ability to touch a chat or
That's
book.
all right.
Lita.
We have, Chelsea has said she has a time that she would like to explain. Chelsea, please unmute.
Hi.
Hello, love.
Hi, beautiful.
Well, I mentioned that in the chat earlier, but it's not really on my mind at this moment, because after that little meditation thing, something else is in my mind. But
Anything that's there, love, just bring it. Water is good.
Well, so when I kind of understand that, you know, the self-sacrifice is a little bit not real. But when it came to the stories that I was going to share, as we've been talking in the last couple weeks about this sort of vein of topic, I always remember when my grandma passed away 8 years ago. And me and my grandpa, we were at the hospice with her, staying in the room. And she passed away in the morning while me and my grandpa were sleeping. And my uncle CJ came in and woke me up and said that, you know, grandma had passed. And so I went to her and I put my hands in her armpits because they were warm. And I could tell that she was losing her body heat, you know, and it was so touching because it made me realize how important it is to hug and touch, and how when you hug a warm person. And my grandma was losing her heat, and so I had my arms in her armpits and I was just frozen. Well, I know because my sister actually came into the room and she told me that she watched me. I didn't know she was there. And actually, I think that was the perfect example of me dissolving into oneness, because I wasn't me. I was just like one with my grandma. And my sister came in and she explains the story of what she saw. And she said, I thought you died too. You both me. You know, my sister comes in, she's like, I thought you both were gone, because I was just, I was not.
Such a magnificent memory, and also a capacity to recognize something we have no words for. What is the self-sacrifice in a way in that? Did you?
No, it is. That was just a story of oneness. Well, I sacrificed my finite self, and I was just one with everything, including my grandma.
Beautiful. And that's really natural in a reconnective healing experience. If I were to ask you, as we sort of assigned in your life, if you were to be asked that question, Chelsea, have you had to make any self-sacrifices? Would you tell that story that way?
Well, actually, if we can just go to what really brought me to tears, it was the self-sacrifice I kind of feel like I did by inviting a certain someone to Thanksgiving. Okay. And really having to let go of hurt in order to do that. And I think it's been easy because of these frequencies in my life to let go of the hurt and invite a certain someone to my house for Thanksgiving.
I love it. And here's the perfect segue. You've just brought it, in my view. Just like active movement is part of an activity of mind, even consciousness is the activity of mind. In the Reconnective Healing experience, Chelsea's given us first an example of self-sacrifice with her grandmother, which was wholeness. And simultaneously in her finite daily life, she's given us an example of something really more understood when we think about this, which would be the sacrificing of self for someone to be in her family for Thanksgiving. And it was uncomfortable, I'm sure, at first. It was a hurt that had to be released. It was a choice of the finite to say, I'm going to sacrifice this I. How do we feel about that I when we are looking at the I from that perspective? And we know the true nature of our infinite being, that and the finiteness of this I. Are we giving so much latitude to that I, that it would allow a consequence to really hurt us in that way. We had a beautiful discussion in Solomon today, and both Miriam and Alina described something very beautifully around fire and smoke. Right? The fire being the true nature of our infinite self, the oneness, and the smoke being an obstacle, a way of knowing. And yet, what is smoke? Smoke is translucent. Smoke comes and it goes. It is, in some ways, the finite self. So self-sacrifice can feel debilitating. For many, it becomes a way of life.
Let me just read you just the way Miriam had written it. It was beautiful. She said, fire can also be understood as our true self, and smoke as the illusion of who we perceive we are and what is happening.
Yes. So the what is happening might be what you wrote down, and the who may be the finite self, and that's beautiful. And it is the permaculture of humankind in understanding at this moment. It is the person who gives up something that causes them suffering. That's how it's articulated. So we want to be discerning, certainly when it comes to the reconnective healing experience, that we dig a little bit finer into what precedes everything that's been shaped through body, mind, consciousness, brain training, and bring some awareness to the consequence, circumstance of how far that smoke has pervaded the knowing of our true nature, how foggy that smoke has absorbed and taken over the plume. And sit a little bit with the greater knowing of the truth. So dissolving or sacrificing self might be a beautiful approach, unabashedly, to address the sacrificing of self in a very whole and healing, restorative, return to balance. Everything that energy, light, and information is in its nature. That is what you are doing. You are bringing light and information onto this planet. So, Cecilia, I want you to moderate. I also want you to bring your perspective as we danced with this and many of the concerns that Cecilia raised around what the finite interpretation and way in which the nature of self-sacrifice might be playing out in the smoke that we are in life. Is there anything you want to add here, love?
My feeling is that while we imagine it to be a sacrifice, initially, we recognize the gifts within are so much more powerful that we receive from that. that expression. And I thank you so much, Chelsea, for your sharing. It was just beautiful and profound. So I would like to thank you. Do you have questions? You seem like you're about to say something. Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, would we call what we just did a meditation, Dr. Eric, or what the little part with our eyes closed? What are we calling that? Like,
well, first of all, if we feel compelled to give it a name, which I don't, you could look at it as an investigation. You could, but really, what is a meditation but an exploration, inward. So there are a lot of different things we could call it. Let me ask you this, Chelsea. If we found a name for it, something to call it right now, what would you do with that name?
I would just give an exact, I just wanted to say whatever we did, whatever that was. And when Jillian said, okay, take your self-sacrifice example and bring it closer to you in time and space. Oh my God, that cut my soul. It was a magnificent, I feel like I've been healed right here in this minute.
Well, I'm going to suggest that really the question was, Dr. Eric, what were you doing?
Let's
just cut to the chase. We're a wonderful group of friends.
All I was really doing was receiving. I was playing, I was feeling with my, it was just, they were down low. They were below the screen. They were not intentionally. It just was easier to let them rest on my lap. I was receiving. But I'll tell you, part of what I realized and recognized in this interaction and experience is that we think of sacrifice as a giving up. But was something given up, or was something actually gained? Not just gained more than what was given up. Was anything really given up that we wanted to hold on to? That, to me,
it's beautiful.
Is the cue.
And if you look at historically, now I'm going to speak to history and human behavior and human history. When you go back and you look at the tone of self-sacrifice and how it has been used, there was a time where the ones that could give the most money were thought of as displaying the greatest component of self-sacrifice. That they would suffer because they gave the most of the objects that they had. Then you have someone who has no objects, has no money. And whatever they do have, they just place out there for the giving of it. They have less to give, but the self-sacrifice, in some ways, the dissolving of the otherness is so profound. There is no context to the way it will be interpreted or understood or serve the finite. You understand? So we have a unique opportunity in the experience of reconnective healing, the exploring, to continue, as Eric shared, as each one of you share, as you are continuing to find in living in the frequencies. That's the live and learn, is to learn to live as energy, light, and information in your finite, smoky filled, fantastically dynamic, totally outrageous daily life. Smoke is amazing. Waves are amazing. Clouds are amazing. This is our finite life. But to live in the frequencies, to allow energy, light, and information to experience itself fully through you without losing yourself in fear, finite expectations.
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling this so powerfully. I just wanted to share because it just brought up when I moved from Orange County to LA. I had to, in making this choice to move to LA, I had to sell my horses, which were the loves of my life. And so in selling my horses and making that chapter close, I could not go back. I had to give my all going forward. I could not put my attention there any longer. I had to focus fully on what was in front of me. And that was a beautiful, powerful knowing of who I was in that moment. And that sacrifice gave me more to give to what I was going forward with. It was amazing.
And those are the ways in which sometimes sacrifice gets released into the finite daily life. Again, Cecilia is speaking about an animal, animals, something dear to her heart, but still an object, a thing. Now, the feeling and the emotion, again, led her more deeply into opportunity, expansiveness. So we want to just be able to recognize, just like when you go to the movies, you recognize that there is a movie and you may get fully lost in the film, so much so that it has become the experience and you don't even recognize when it's ended, and it takes a little bit of a return to recognize that it's ended and it was just a screen. Same idea here. Even when you have lived a life of pain, disease, poverty, recognize that we will choose to understand these self-sacrifices, or we will always remember that there is no consequence that steals or takes the eternal nature of our true being. And now we must recognize it so that the balance continues to evolve, not just each of us on our own experience, playing an important part, but how about everything that finite mind has created? Technology, the planet, everything. Everything. We also can get attached to the, Barbara, what are you saying? Do we want to unmute? People can speak.
Well, yes, we have Viorica, her hand has been raised for a long time. Let's
Great.
Go ahead. Let's use a couple hands.
Hello, do you hear me? You hear me
Yes.
well?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to share my experience of self-sacrifice. A few years ago, I had to let go of my interests, of my dreams, to stay with and work with my daughter. She was in a relationship, unsane relationship, unhealthy, non-unsane, unhealthy. And I felt deep down that she needed my presence near her, by her. And I was frustrated. I felt frustrated because I wanted to leave from that place of work because she has a bar, and I worked and I still work with her. But that period of time brought many insights for me. First of all, I learned to know myself better. I understand that it wasn't really a self-sacrifice. It was all my life, all my love for her. And I had to manifest in that way, in that moment. And
Wait,
yes,
can I ask a question? Let me ask a question. You said in that moment you had to manifest the increased love for her. Is that sort of the idea?
No,
I would like
I wanted to say that in that period of time, I had to stay with her because she needed my presence. She really needed my presence. And it was the way I manifested my deep love for her. I understand this for myself, and I stopped fighting against all of these circumstances because really I was the tool that made her understand that that relationship was unhealthy. Not because I was interfering, I didn't. But my presence there, it was like a catalyst.
Yes, you were love, and the contrast of what wasn't love became even more illuminated. But I want to talk about you for a moment because you're referring to me and I. So I want to, again, you had a wonderful instinct to stay and be there. And the sacrificing of self was your finite, beautiful, individual life on its way doing things, coming to a pause of sorts. You divested a little of the attention around whatever you were involved in. And you said the presence of you without interference became the catalyst for a healing. So we understand, listen to the simplicity of the innate nature of this that we call self-sacrifice. It's so simple. If I look at, it's Viorica, is that how you pronounce your name?
Viorica. Viorica, yeah.
Viorica. If you listen from the fullness, or you are allowing yourself to see from where seeing is, and you trace Viorica's explanation here, think of the natural simplicity to this. Her daughter in a complicated relationship, not of love, maybe the feeling of love, but not love itself, is in resistance and rattling. Her mother recognizes this and has a knowing. And she pauses her life. That journey of her individual Viorica pauses. And without doing anything other than the divesting of self, activities, times, friends, just the divesting of self, becomes a vessel of connection and love. And without interference, please hear this. There was no, I'm going to say, extended intervention. You didn't create a block or, maybe no longer support your daughter. You didn't create a consequence. You didn't treat the symptom of your daughter's hearing or seeing. You became the presence, self-sacrificing and wholeness, and something changed. It wasn't that it happened through words and counseling, interventions, doctors, psychological reframing, neurolinguistic programming, a Reiki session, pendulums, crystals. The healing was the infinite nature of your true being.
So do we in those experiences experience what we think of as sacrifice, which is loss for whatever reason, or do we experience presence and love, which doesn't have a sense or flavor of an experience of giving up or loss?
Right. Has no recognition of loss or less than or part of. And you said
so is
yourself,
sacrifice really perception?
Sacrifice is the perception and feeling that has gotten attached, that has been perpetuated in order for subject, object, life to grow. But you even said yourself, to be love itself was everything for you, not just her healing, but it became your healing.
Yes.
And the finite sacrifice in the moment, I really want us to not lose sight of. Because, and hear me when I say this, your finite identity will audition continuously without pause for your attention, always. From the moment you are of breath and life until the moment that you return to energy, light, and information and God, love, and the universe, it does not know anything other than that. So is brain training, breaking the habit of being yourself, useful? Of course it is. Is there more? Yes. Is there something much simpler? Yes. Are they all valuable? Yes.
But yet
Know the
is
difference.
is the simpler what allows us to be us, to be who we are?
Right.
Is possibly the more we effort and work to gain something, the more of a separation and even a desire to separate because of that work versus an allowance as being one, being the essence, the light, who you are.
And I'm going to just say, I'm going to bring a biblical something into this beautiful moment.
I was trying
You know you're
not to
going
go
there.
there, but I
We're
was.
going there.
Yeah.
So the myth, the truth, the absolute knowingness of
The
Jesus,
set.
whatever it is in your world, myth, truth, the absolute, it doesn't matter. Let's look at the act of the depth and the truth without the religiosity or the story or the way in which it was scribed. If we look at the idea of even Jesus giving the self-sacrifice of self for this, that, or the other, there was never a moment in that had to do with the sacrificing, I'm going to say, of an object, of a thing. It was never about something that we were giving up. Okay? And so we do this much more gracefully. I always say when that statement, these things you do, these things I do, you shall do, and more, here for me is the and more. I receive, I allow energy, light, and information to experience itself as me. I allow the dissolving of otherness, and I become that light, the fullness, the holiness of that for every guest that travels through my knowingness and with my knowingness. There is no crucifixion on a cross any more than you're going to go to a phone booth 150 miles up the road and put a quarter or a pound in to make a phone call. Everything that we understand is, in a way, worthy of this investigation. We are becoming aware of the true nature of who and what we are.
And is it the willingness to what we consider sacrifice, whereby comes the healing and or the transformation that we experience that it was never sacrificed to begin with? Is it the willingness of they would say God giving his only begotten son. We would say, is it the willingness of Abraham to right up to the last minute to sacrifice Isaac to only discover a greater love for God because of the willingness, not the action. I think the willingness comes in the healing and everything else. Because the healing comes in the willingness.
Consequences are what we're wrestling with. The finite mind, the person, is such an intriguing projection. It is part of the illusion. It is also the most magnificent reality. So part of the exploring, and we touched on it today, and thank you so much for the transparency of your real life situation, the learning, the of love, to be love itself. Now, some people's lives become that for the entirety of their life. They care for a parent. They have a child who comes into the world with unimaginable circumstances. All of these scenarios and consequences, if we learn to navigate more graciously from the true knowing of our true infinite nature, then the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions that accompany these consequences have a different tone. They have a different magnitude on our body, our mind, our consciousness. And I think we're exploring that a lot in a reconnective healing experience. But you can't ask for some external in a reconnective healing experience to just fix it for you. It precedes the understanding of fixing anything. It precedes all experience. So this is what we wanted to chat about today. How are we doing? Cece?
This has been so powerful. This has been so powerful, so amazing. I just wanted to acknowledge Melanie for an incredible sharing that she'd had. She says, not sure how I feel. Tears fell as soon as I closed my eyes. I felt sad and sorry for myself, thinking of giving up my dreams and my belief in the magic of love, feeling lost and alone and stupid, even though I know this isn't true. So I just thought that was just very powerful. Melanie, if you'd like to share on that, we would love to hear from you. Melanie?
I'm still crying.
Good.
I don't even know what I was supposed to be doing or thinking. I mean, I listened, I swear I did. I'm so sad lately, like this past week. And I just keep thinking about my past and all these mistakes that I've made and how I'm such a different person in this past year and 4 weeks that it's been, 5 days and 6 decades that it's been since the frequencies found me. And I feel guilty for, it's okay. I feel guilty for not finding them sooner and applying this to my life and my children's lives.
Oh, my darling.
How could we ever have found them sooner? Any of us. How could I have found them sooner? How could anyone have found them sooner? They find you.
How it's supposed to be, but I feel like
Okay.
life, it's been trying to find me and I've been ignoring it. You know, there were so many times when things almost led me there and I just, turned away. And I realized that's how it was supposed to be too, because I wasn't ready. I'm barely ready now. But I feel just crushed. I don't know how to explain that.
So let me ask you a question now. This is, I think, is a really important piece of things, because the idea of finding that you are already enlightened isn't really meant to spiral you into
Why
shame.
didn't it happen
Shame.
sooner?
So let's look at where forgiveness lives. And I think that's a really important piece to bring this to some resolution. Again, the idea of recognizing that you are enlightenment isn't something you're going to strive to become. It is what you are, is a resting place. And the idea that your experience has brought about a whole pathway of different beautiful experiences, all of which we know are part of, again, God, love, and the universe experiencing itself as you. The only forgiveness, it's not your kids, it's not your love, it's not your tattoo people, it's the forgiveness can only exist when you divest or self-sacrifice your thoughts and feelings of self to your true nature. Your true nature doesn't know what you did or didn't do. It has no capacity to even know. So I always say, when people are trying to resolve something, and maybe there's been a difficult situation, a divorce, or kids have gotten the brunt of it, and we wait around for our children's forgiveness, or our sister, or our brother, or our husband's, or our animal's forgiveness. That isn't where the healing happens. And so hurry on up to where the healing happens.
Yeah,
the healing
and you
happens
could be
for
waiting.
everyone.
You could be waiting a very long time. So let me use me as an example, which is, my relationship with my father was not good. From the beginning, it was not good. Throughout time, it was not good. Throughout, and all the way up till around the time I was in almost my mid-20s. One day, he called me, and this is not a thing that I'm proud of, but I'm sharing it because I think it's important. He called me up. I was living in California at the time, and he said he was in the doctor's office, and someone else in the doctor's office was there with his son, and the son, I don't remember the story, was possibly going to die, about to lose his life, and it was so sad. And he realized or wanted to share with me how important I was to him and how much he loved me. And you know what I thought in my mind? Not that I'm proud of this, but I went, you know what? You treated me with you created a lot of unnecessary misery, your anger, your this, your that, and the other in my mind. Oh, I was just remembering this. And I thought to myself, I didn't say it out loud, but of course, thank you. I said, you'll wait another 24 years before I forgive you. This is how unevolved I was at that moment. But you know what? He did. I did. That's where I was. It was a long time. Maybe it wasn't 24 years more, but it was a long time. And it was only finally later, towards the end, where roles reversed, and he was not in great shape, and he was still taking care of my mother when she had cancer, wasn't in great shape, and then she passed, where I was able to open up and share. And it was a sacrifice for me to share. Now, I gained from it, but it was not easy for me because there was nothing that allowed me to share of my emotions easily or freely or openly or comfortably with him. It just, there wasn't there. So please don't wait. The healing that is yours, have it now. The healing that is someone else's, they will have it when it's appropriate time for them.
And I will tell you that Eric's father, who was an active Reconnective healing practitioner, understood this forgiveness, that in that turning point, he found forgiveness. And it was him finding forgiveness for himself that allowed, again, that oneness, that dissolving, that self-sacrifice. The self-sacrifice is you forgiving yourself. That's the self-sacrifice. That's where it lives, my love.
I'm not even sure if I understand how to do that, or if I am doing that, or what that would even feel like.
You're looking at it, you're exploring it, is the doing of it.
Yeah.
It's not, because it's not a doing.
Play with the
It's a being,
frequency.
it's an exploration.
You know how to do that well. You know what? Let the energy, light, and information pervade you, darling. That is you. You are that. There, in that way, there's the forgiveness. And in the meantime, emotions are emotions, feelings are feelings. You have a beautiful community. What we don't want to do is, we're not in a position in the Reconnective Healing experience to explore the psychological, to look at the mind and change behaviors. That teaching does exist in many spaces and places. People spend and have spent decades in healing and spirituality to move you through the psychological trauma of being a person. We only know one thing about the idea of being a person. It's an illusion in a way, and the Reconnective Healing experience glimpses you into what precedes being a person. And that's a super way that you found yourself to this. So we can keep it simple in that way, and we can nurture and tell you that we can self-sacrifice so that you know the oneness.
Right.
That's part of the entrainment that we speak about on the scientific level of energy, light, and information. So Cecilia, my love, I need to let you take over.
Yes,
Love you, Mel.
thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who has shared today. And we knew this was going to be a very powerful topic, and that's why we did not have the life leaders come in today. We loved our life leaders, but we knew that we would go fully into the Q&A, and we see that there are still hands that we did not have an opportunity to get to. And we thank you for your willingness to share, and we hope to get to you soon. And I invite you to send your questions or your comments to info@thereconnection.com. I'm going to put that in the chat. I got to spell it correctly. Sorry. And we would love to hear from you fully, and we would be happy to, extend that in our next gathering. But thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for your love, and we appreciate you being here. And happy Thanksgiving
For those celebrating, yeah.
For those celebrating, and those who are not celebrating it, we hope you have a delicious meal tomorrow with loved ones. And if you're by yourself, we are here for you in spirit, and we love you. So thank you so much. I've placed the information in the chat, and we will see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Love.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Love you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Loved it.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
It's a lot. Let it just be.
Yes.
Love you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving. Happy double day.
Love you all.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
Happy loving
Love you
day.
all.
Happy loving day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Love to all. Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.